All right, entomology class. How are we doing today? Right now we are recording Module 3, Lesson 9, the orders of the Paraneoptera. So, as we've looked at already, we've kind of covered the non-flyers, the Paleoptera, the Polyneoptera, and now we are down to the last couple big groups, the Paraneoptera and the Holometabula. Remember, right here we got wings. Here we got Neoptera, new wings. Complicated wings. Now the Paraneoptera. The Paraneoptera are actually a kind of a funny little group. We've hypothesized monophyly, or that they're all belong in one group, but really it might not be the case as we look at it. From this 2011 phylogeny, it's unresolved. We have Theraptera and Socoptera, which we'll talk about all four of these orders. Hemiptera and Thysanoptera, they're not showing up as a single group. But we did have this another analysis dating back to 2015, and the 2015 analysis is a little more hopeful for a single origin of Paraneoptera, but it doesn't have a lot of other things to compare. They've got a cockroach right here and a grasshopper there. But it is an interesting analysis for a couple of different reasons. So the Socoptera right here, which you're going to be talking about, they form a group by themselves, what we call a monophyletic group. The Thysanoptera do as well, right here. The Theraptera, we're just going to call them Theraptera. A lot of these are ever changing, unfortunately. They do as well, but the Hemiptera in green do not appear to form a monophyletic clade, because you've got this group here, the Sternorhyncha, which we'll talk about. Sternorhyncha means mouth from your chest. From the sternum. We'll talk about what that is and why they get that name. They seem to not be part of the rest of the Hemiptera, which seem to have an origin right about here. So we'll kind of address that a little bit. We're not going to get too deep into the woods with this, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay. So let's start with Thysanoptera. For this one, you have the Thysanos, means fringe, and Ptera means wing. So obviously it's close to Thanos, which I think in most pop culture is pretty familiar with at this point in time, since like a billion people saw that movie. But in reality, Thysanos is what it is. Of course, you could say that Thanos was on the fringe. I don't know. They are these really cool critters. Software update, go away. They're very, very small. We're talking 0.5 to 5 millimeters long. They do this thing with their mouth. It's called the punch and suck mouth parts. They actually eat one plant cell at a time. How crazy is that? So they actually can get in there and punch into one cell, kind of take all the plant juices out of it, and then go on to the next. So they have really, really weird mouth parts. You just kind of know they're asymmetrical, one functional mandible. They have these really short antennae. The coolest thing is the fringe on their wings, right? They don't have a traditional membranous wing like we see, but they just have a bunch of these little hairs, and they're so small that does a plenty good job to allow them to fly. They're not great flyers. I'll give them that. They're not like a bee or a fly, but they're pretty cool. Most of them are plant feeders. A few of them are predators. We're not too worried about those. A lot of these are pests of greenhouses, so they do create a lot of problems. You can see here in this image down here, we have a leaf that's got a lot of them in there. They've been going around doing their punch and suck ritual, eating one cell at a time and doing quite a bit of damage. You can find them often in the fall in yellow flowers. So kind of go up and look through yellow flowers. Probably going to have thrips in there. Thrips is also a weird one. Their common name is thrips, right? That actually is a plural as well as singular version of that word. Thrips kind of is for both of them. You have thrips and thrips. So you have one thrips or you have many thrips. There you go. There's your fun trivia for the day. I guess a lot of this is trivia. They have a weird life cycle. We've talked about the holometabolous life cycle of egg, larva, pupa, adult. Some individuals give these things a pupa because they have this non-feeding propupa, pupa stage. It's not a true pupa like we find in the holometabola, but it's what you call convergent evolution. It's evolved, but not exactly the same way. So it's pretty cool that way, but it's not a true pupal form like we see in holometabola. All right, our next group is the Pseucoptera. I still use the term Pseucoptera. A lot of books still use the term Pseucoptera. A lot of individuals have kind of changed over to Pseucoidea. I'm going to kind of stick with Pseucoptera, but Pseucos means nod. And so it's the reason some people use Pseucoidea is because there's some wingless forms of this, so they don't think you should have the term Ptera, Ptera, right, in the name because there's some that are wingless, but whatever, I don't care. It's traditionally the Pseucoptera. We'll just keep it like that. So the bark lice are these ones here. They gnaw on, they eat, you'll find them under bark eating tree stuff, but they're eating bits of fungus and detritus and other stuff kind of underneath there, as well as gnawing a little bit on some of the wood probably. The book lice that we have down here, they get their name book lice because they used to love to be commonly found eating the glue in old books. So you can still sometimes find them if you find a very poorly curated library with some old books in it that they don't take care of. You can find book lice in there, but they don't seem to eat the same kind of stuff, the same kind of glue that they use these days for books. So they're not common in normal and current day books. They have very similar antennae for both of them. These long thread-like antennae. They're good hiders. Are hard to find. Bark lice hold their wings over their back, kind of like in a tent. That's the Pseucoptera. I know you're thinking, oh wow, we're ripping through this. But we're going to spend a lot more time on the Hemiptera and some more time on the Therapta. So this is the Therapta. These are the parasitic lice. Okay? Sorry, get rid of that. These come in two major forms, the chewing lice and the sucking lice. Just kind of looking at their name, the Phthir means lice, and of course aptera means without wings or wingless, right? So Apter is wingless, and all these are wingless. They're ectoparasites, so they hang out on the outside of mammals and birds. The sucking lice are only found on mammals. They're all over the world. They have the smaller head. They bite down and suck blood. That's kind of their MO. The chewing lice have a much broader head. They chew on skin. They also chew on dead skin that's falling off. You'll find these on birds as well as mammals. So they're kind of crossover lice. I got a buddy who had pigeons. You could almost always find Theraptera on his pigeons. The chewing lice are very diverse, about 2,600 known species. So there's a lot of them out there. We kind of already talked about the head. The tarsal claws on the sucking lice, because the sucking lice are only found in mammals, are designed to kind of grab onto hairs of a mammal. Let's so here you can see it fairly well here. These little this is a hair, a single hair right here, right? And so they're there to hang on to the hair, and then they'll crawl down and bite and suck blood from your skin that cause some irritation often. All right. There is some hook going on in the chewing lice as well. They're not as specialized as we see in the biting lice. They're in the sucking lice. Excuse me. All right. Now, these things are kind of cool because they tend to have a one-to-one relationship with the host. They get very species specific on the host that they're living on. So there's actually a lot of cool studies kind of showing phylogenies, contrasting phylogenies between the two, between a host and the louse that lives on it. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so how are they important? Well, they're ectoparasites, so that's really bad. Any of these, when they get in really high numbers, are pretty gross. Cause a lot of itching and things like that. You don't want to get a lot of lice. They like to go from person to person, so sometimes the whole school class will have a breakout of head lice. It is not a very fun thing to have take place when your kid gets it from school and brings it home. It's horrible, to be honest with you. They also spread a lot of disease like relapsing fever, typhus, trench fever. Some really, really bad things there. We'll talk more about that later when we talk medical entomology and what they do. But you can see here's an old poster from I think it was World War II times. Typhus was really, really bad, especially in the trenches. They call it trench fever sometimes. And it was just, it would spread really rapidly. All these people living really, really close to each other. It's pretty gross. And they would spread this disease, and it can cause death if not treated right. So it's pretty bad news. Can spread it among livestock, cause a lot of irritation in livestock. In humans, the crab louse. This is the one on the bottom left here, the adult pubic louse for humans, Therapterus pubis. This one is considered a sexually transmitted disease, not one that you want to get or share. Pretty nasty. It's commonly called the crabs. Pretty gross stuff. So there's your lice. Don't mess with lice. They're pretty nasty. Okay, next up, the Hemipteras. We're going to spend a lot of time on Hemiptera because they're a big group and they're really diverse. All right, their name means Hemiptera, meaning half wing. And the reason for that is they have this hardened area right here, right? And then they have a membranous section next to attached to that. Not all Hemiptera have that, but a lot of them do. They're called the true bugs. It's kind of a common name because a lot of them do. Then it kind of got co-opted for the whole group, the Hemiptera, and so it's the Hemelytra. That's how they get their name. But they, like I said, they're very diverse. We have the true bugs. Here are the true bugs here, but there's also cicadas, the hoppers, the psyllids, the whiteflies right here, the aphids, and the scale insects. They're a very, very diverse group, 35,000 species, give or take a few. So, yeah, there's a lot. The general mouth part, and it's hard to, they're so diverse, it's not just one type, but they generally speaking have piercing, sucking mouth parts. Most of those are for plant feeding, but there are a number of predators that use it to feed on body juices, which we'll talk about shortly. They're pretty nasty, but they have these stylets. They can pierce really tough tissues fairly effectively. Let me see if I can kind of draw it out here. So these are kind of hardened parts, and this is the sheath that's going to go down. Let's see. Maybe I'll make that blue. So they use this part to kind of grab it up here, and they grab it up here and force it in, and then force it in some more and some more until they get deep enough to get what they need out of it. So it's pretty cool. And then they have this this bulb up here that actually can form a big vacuum in their mouth, and that can suck a whole bunch of stuff up, right? So they can suck all sorts of liquids up from plant juices. They can also suck blood for those that feed on blood. The giant water bugs and some of these others, they actually will bite something with so much poison they kind of turn it to mush, and then they just suck all the body juices out of it. It's pretty kind of gross. They have the hemimetabolous development, so they just have egg, larva, multiple stages of larva, and then the winged adult that comes last and can reproduce. All right, so here's a bunch of different true bugs. So we call this the suborder Heteroptera. You don't need to know the suborder Heteroptera, but just kind of get it straight. But we're talking like things like water boatman, assassin bugs, broad-headed bugs, milkweed bugs, leaf bugs, bed bugs, damsel bugs. All those things are part of the Heteroptera. And we're going to spend some more time here kind of looking at some examples of that. Here's a bunch of some plant feeders that are quite common and really cool. I guess I'm not going to hit this again. So the bed bugs, these are Hemiptera, part of the Heteroptera. Like I said, some are blood feeders, and that's what these are. These, much like the lice we just talked about, they're going to hang out, wait till you're asleep, crawl up on you, bite you, suck your blood out, give you some welts and sores, and then disappear. Come daylight, right? They're going to go hide. Not very pleasant little critters. So here are some classic Heteropteran hemipterans with the half wing. Really cool. Here's a bunch of different aquatic forms. So there's quite a few aquatics. The giant water bug is right here. It's huge and very cool. We're going to talk some more about that. This looks like the water bug. The giant water bug is called the water scorpion, the Nepidae. These are some of my favorites. These are called little toad bugs. They look like a little toad, and they actually hop around like a little toad. They're really cool little things. They're Gelasticores. Find them down on near little banks of streams and stuff. Even around here, they're not very common, but you can find them. Here are the hydrometrids, which basically means water measurer. These are really, really small, about 2 to 3 millimeters in length. They can walk on top of water, right? Just like the water strider. They get enough surface tension on their legs, and they can just walk right on top of the water. These are nasty little things. The water creepers. They inject some poison. I got bit by one of those once. Not my favorite day. It hurt really bad. Got to be careful on one of those. And then, of course, our water striders. There's multiple kinds that love to hang out on water. So there's lots of aquatic forms. So I would say these three here, they live underwater. These actually, a different color. The water striders and the hydrometrids, I believe, will drown if they are actually submerged in water. They walk across it, but they can't go underneath it. And then the creeping water, or the toad bugs, I just see them jumping around. I've never seen them actually in the water, but they're always associated with water, hopping around on the ground. So the giant water bugs are actually a staple of food in multiple countries. They're really cool. They're quite large, and they'll sell them just at markets. If you go out, I know this kind of experience, but in certain places in Thailand, they'll have big lights out at night near ponds and stuff, and they'll collect hundreds of these things. They usually rip the wings off and fry them. And you can see here on the far left are a bunch of fried ones. I did not taste those. They seem a little gross. When we talk edible insects, maybe we'll hit this a little bit more. You can actually see in this thing with the, it looks like it's a banana leaf, and it looks like there might be some rice underneath there. It was not uncommon for friends of mine in Thailand just to have a plate of rice and some fried bugs that they just eat right on top of it, which at the time seemed horrifying. I did eat a grasshopper there. When fried, tastes a whole lot like a potato chip. But we'll talk a little more when we talk edible insects about maybe how that's really, really good and important. Who knows? Here's this little video. I'll link it in the module or in the lesson so you can see a guy holding one of these, kind of get a size for what it is. All right, so that is the Hemiptera or the Heteroptera. Now we're going to talk about all these other groups, but we'll do it hopefully a little bit more quickly. Let's go here. So the other two major groups, we call them the Ochenarhyncha and the Sternorhyncha. So you should know Heteroptera, Ochenarhyncha, and Sternorhyncha as the three major kind of divisions here. These have classically been put into this suborder called Homoptera. That is a bad name, and I'll talk about that on the next slide, why that is a bad name. But the Ochenarhyncha and Sternorhyncha are good names for now anyway. Heteroptera means same wing. They got their name because of the uniform texture of the wings. They're not like the Hemiptera that have the half scutellum, half wing version of that. They're all herbivorous. Let's not talk Homoptera. It's just a bad name. It's not good. So why is it a bad name? Well, because here is Sternorhyncha, and right here are a bunch of different groups of the Ochenarhyncha. They do not form a single group. We thought that they did for a long time, but they don't. In fact, Sternorhyncha might not even be hemipteran. They might be more closely related to thrips and lice than anything else, which is pretty cool. I think more data needs to be collected on this to make it definitive. But like, here's our Heteroptera, here's our Ochenarhyncha, and here's our Sternorhyncha. So we can't use the term Homoptera because it's not a good name. It's not for a single origin group. It sucks pretty bad, actually. So we're going to burn that one. But we'll talk about Ochenarhyncha. So Ochenarhyncha, that means neck-mouth. That's a fun name. What the heck are they talking about with neck-mouth? Well, neck-mouth means that their mouth kind of comes out of where their neck is. It's kind of hard to see in any of these pictures, but usually with most Ochenarhynchans, it starts right about here and just goes down. This one would start right out here and go down in. This one goes forward, but it starts right kind of in this area here, the neck-mouth critters. There's lots of them, lots of these guys, and they're really cool. We got cicadas, fulgurids, plant hoppers, tree hoppers. This is the peanut-headed bug, one of the coolest critters around. Lots of fun stuff going on here. One of the critical things that's going on in the Ochenarhyncha right now are the spotted lanternflies. These have been imported from Asia. They are devastatingly bad on crops. These are the counties where they have been found so far. We are very, very scared that they'll make it up to Erie County up here because we have such a great viticulture growing grapes up here, and this could be devastating to the grapes. So we really hope that never happens. probably is going to happen, but hopefully we'll have ways of controlling when it does. I mean, these things, when they come out in by the millions, and they eat just about any plant that you can imagine. So they're pretty bad stuff, pretty bad news. If you see a spotted lanternfly, please report it. Let me know. I'll report it. Call the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Anywhere you are, let them know you spotted some spotted lanternfly. Another cool part of the Alkena are the cicadas. We have annual cicadas and periodic cicadas. You probably heard of the periodic cicadas. They come out in mass all at one time. This map is really cool if you want to kind of spend some time taking a look at it. It is looking at 17-year and 13-year cicadas, and when they emerge, there's different populations at different areas of the United States that emerge. We had one close to here. Didn't really get up in Erie much in 2019. They had, was it 2015? Not too long ago. They had down in Maryland, Virginia area. At some point in the recent, not too distant past, they had a 13-year and a 17-year that overlapped, that came out all at the same time. There was a lot of cicadas, which is pretty cool if you're an entomologist. Really terrible if you're not. Another really cool one from the Alkena are the tree hoppers. And they're just so cool because they have this amazing pronotal adaptations. They just do these crazy things. Probably first started looking like thorns, like you see in the top left and top middle image, but then they just kind of, once they had the structures, they just kind of went crazy with it, and they have all sorts of just bizarre, weird pronotals. So that's a sclerotized bit of exoskeleton on the prothorax. So the front section of the thorax has it, and they just have these crazy, different, diverse projections. Here's some more here. You can see in the bottom things that look like thorns. Sure. These other things, who the heck knows? Especially this one right here. What is going on with that? No idea, other than it's really freaking cool. And then we have plant hoppers. Plant hoppers are also super cool. Just lots of different designs and things, not to the extent of the tree hoppers, but very cool stuff. All right, now on to the Sternorhyncha. Again, Homoptera, bad name, don't like it. I forgot. Don't want to have this in there either. This means chest mouth. So the mouth comes out of a lower spot, seemingly like it's right out of the sternum. And these are your scale insects and your aphids and things like that. My passion is in this group, but most people do not agree with that. I work on scale insects. Here's some soft scales and mealybugs in the middle, and armored scales on the far right. Very, very interesting group. Maybe later we'll talk about different diversity of genetic systems in insects, and this is going to be a highlight of that discussion. Aphids also do some cool stuff called cyclical parthenogenesis, where parthenogenesis means cloning, basically. Females having females without any males. So what they do is a male and female will meet up, and they'll copulate, and the female will lay a bunch of eggs, and those eggs will overwinter. So the eggs can survive a good harsh winter, and then they'll hatch out in the spring, and then the mothers will have more mothers, will have more females, will have more females, will have more females, and then in the autumn, one of those females will have male and female offspring, so that they can mate and have eggs. Right? The aphids don't lay eggs unless they're going to be laying bisexual, or not bisexual, but male and female eggs on there. So they are parthenogenic most of the year, and then in the fall to lay eggs, they take some cues from changing weather or tree conditions, and they start laying eggs, and it's really cool. All right, so that pretty much wraps up our discussion on the Paraneoptera. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too long, and we'll call it there.